Now, what's interesting, they start going over the script, right? So the body camera, they want to go over the transcripts, all the conversations that happen on the actual body camera. And they start asking the officer, Officer Minshew, some unique questions about it, about his investigation. They pointed out how he was struggling to keep up, right, with the statements given by William Rodney Bryant, right? He constantly had to ask for, hey, can you explain that? Can you show me this? Can you do that? He just wasn't catching on. And they used that against him in the cross-examination. How, right? Because things were missing out of his police report.
On direct examination, I believe you said that Mr. Bryan attempted to block Mr. Arbery 5 times. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes.
You recall there being some question as to how many times Mr. Bryan used the word block as opposed to how many times he actually did block Mr. Arbery. You recall that issue?
Yes. What was in the transcript versus how many times he actually did it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't there. So.
Well, but then you answered that in fact Mr. Bryan attempted to block Mr. Arbery 5 times?
It was stated in there approximately 5 times, different occasions.
Okay. Okay. Well, would it surprise you that a word counter reveals that the word block is used in the transcript, the entire transcript, only 6 times?
Okay.
And that 3 of those times refer to Mr. Bryan circling the block, not blocking Mr. Arbery.
Objection, Judge.
You recall filling out a police report in this case,
I do.
summarizing your encounter with Mr. Bryan that day.
Yes.
Okay. If you could take a moment and review that police report. In your police report, summarizing the conversation you've been testifying to today, how many times did you report that Mr. Bryan blocked Mr. Arbery?
None.
Well, it would be 1. Certainly not 5. Am I
Okay.
correct?
The way it's worded, yes.
All right. Although presented as a consistent narrative here on direct, I think you've already indicated Mr. Bryan, you and Mr. Bryan went back over the same subject matter several times.
Yes, and the directions that they were traveling.
Okay. Including at least one time in the presence of another witness in this case. I'm not asking you which one.
Yes.
Okay. And you've previously testified that Mr. Bryan's story was confusing to you.
Yes, the directions that they were traveling in, without me looking at a map, it was hard to follow.
And you really couldn't make out exactly what he was trying to say.
That's correct.
Having had time to think about it some more, when you testified earlier that Mr. Bryan told you that he blocked Mr. Arbery 5 separate times, perhaps you meant to say that he used the word block 5 separate times.
I think he used the word corner one time in there as well.
Yeah, but what you're doing when you talk about the number of times that Mr. Bryan uses this word is you're counting all the different times you've gone back over the same incident with him.
I'm not sure.
You don't think that changes the flavor of your testimony? Rodney Bryan never expressed to you any intention on his part to physically injure Mr. Arbery in any way, did he?
No, he didn't.
No fruit?
What people don't realize is attorneys are very slick, and a good attorney is going to pick up on everything. And what was the unique thing about him using the script and then looking at his police report? He realized that there were things that were mentioned on the body camera that Officer Minshew never added to his report, but he tried to testify to it, right? By saying, yeah, he tried to block him with the car, with the truck, tried to block Ahmaud approximately 5 times. That's what he said. He's like, show me on your police report where it says that, right? Point to it. He's like, oh. Where did it say that on your police report? What did my client really say? Could he have been talking about the neighborhood block? Could he have been talking about this block, a block of this, block of that? Like, your investigation, your initial report was trash. And they used it against him on the stand. right? The power of words, you guys. Attorneys are going to pick apart the words. Officer Minshew also did something else that as officers, we need to be cognizant of, right? Is showing bias, showing any signs of favoritism, showing any signs of treatment that would make someone perceive that you think this person is right? Or being comfortable. Defense used this officer's comfort level to their advantage. How did he do that? The officer showed up at the scene. He was casual, right? He was just, I don't need to pat you guys down. Get out of here, right? Oh, you put the guns up? Hey, appreciate it. Thanks for doing my job. He was so chill. The defense used that and said, were my clients a threat? Were they going anywhere? You let them pace around like that. Obviously, you felt that they were in the right. You, officer, were comfortable. If my clients were truly dangerous, wouldn't you have responded differently? Ooh, you get what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying? His body language, the way he went into the scene, right? His mindset, the officer's mindset, his lackluster, right?
Okay. To your knowledge, though, Travis never walked around the scene and picked up or removed any evidence.
To my knowledge, no, and I didn't see him do that either while I was there.
Right, and never attempted to run away or flee when you were there.
That's correct, he did
Just
not.
stood in the spot and kind of waited.
That's correct.
Okay.
Did you search Mr. Bryan for any weapons at the scene?
I did not.
You didn't search Mr. Bryan's truck for weapons either.
I did not, no.
You didn't observe any weapons on Mr. Bryan.
I did not observe any weapons on him, no.
To your knowledge, Mr. Bryan was unarmed at the time of the shooting.
To my knowledge, that's correct.
And again, he didn't pose a danger to you or anyone else on the scene.
I did not see him being dangerous to me, no.
He was so casual. He was so unbothered. He was so unconcerned. He was so relaxed. He was so comfortable with the idea that these gentlemen just murdered somebody, and nothing about that entire scenario, them moving around from here to there, the possible destruction or tampering of evidence, none of that fazed this officer to the point to where they even allowed them to leave. The defense said, hey, clearly, even you saw that my client was not in the wrong, because look how you treated him. You knew, officer. Whew. This is why we have to be neutral, right? You had the officers at the scene, hey, you want some water? You want to wash this blood evidence off of your body? Oh, you have a knot right here, Travis? Let me get you an ice pack. No. Don't touch that. That's evidence, right? That's evidence. They talked about that. This is why we have to be so careful as officers not to assume anything, to treat everyone the same, equitable treatment, so that people can't use that, right? They used that against him on the stand, and they're absolutely correct. I think it was genius. It was genius, right? You've allowed the mannerisms of the suspects to help the defense, right? They're pacing back and forth. You can see it on the camera. Travis is going back and forth. His hands, I'm so distraught. I just killed somebody. I'm so stressed about it. What? Oh, can I wash this blood off my hands? I can't believe I got this blood on my hands. Why? Can I wash it off? What? Is that what you guys are worried about? And you have someone's life you just took, right? But no, let's get to the blood. Let's wash your hands, sir. Sorry for the inconvenience of life. the burden of taking a life with your hands. Blood gets on them, right? That's the trade-off. That's the trade-off. So, but why is this interesting? Why am I bringing this up? Think about it.
It was one of the things that you've already testified to is that there was a lot of pacing going on, right? Travis McMichael was doing a lot of pacing in a small area.
Correct.
Greg McMichael was doing a lot of pacing in a small area.
That's correct.
Travis McMichael actually had blood kind of covering him front and back.
Yes.
Right? Okay. You recall seeing that he had blood on his arms, right?
Yes, it was on his arms, hands, and on his head.
On his head.
Yep.
And you recall seeing that he also had some blood here on the back of his neck even.
Yes.
Okay. So this was a fairly, as you were beginning to observe it, a fairly traumatic scene that was kind of unfolding in front of your eyes.
Absolutely.
And Mr. Travis McMichael was still under the influence of that trauma.
Objection to speculation, Your Honor.
Based on your observations, he was still under the influence of that trauma.
Objection to speculation, Your Honor.
I'm not asking to speculate what was in his mind, that he was visibly traumatized by the experience.
Let's let him describe it. That'll be easier for the.
All that pacing back and forth, people are seeing the mannerisms, right? The defense is using that and saying, can't you tell that my client is traumatized? Can't you tell that my client is struggling with the decision that he had to make? He's traumatized. Can't you tell? Look how he's pacing back and forth. Can you tell me, officer, can you tell by his actions that he was in regret? You see what I'm saying? If this officer would have detained these suspects, separated them, right? They would have been secure and put aside. Now you have the defense using all of this as ammunition. And who is he telling this to? The jurors. The jurors are seeing this. What are they thinking? Oh, he didn't mean to do it. Look at him. He couldn't have, right? Look how he's pacing. He's frustrated. He's distraught, right? What is that painting? What kind of picture does that paint? It's taking away the malice. Okay, it's taking away any hate. It takes away the argument of maybe this was racist, right? Maybe this was a hate crime. You take that away. If you can show the passion, the pain, right? The empathy. If you can show those emotions, of course the jury's going to look at that. The defense was genius for doing that. The officer is an imbecile, right? Right? He created all this ammunition for the defense. What else did the defense use as ammunition that this officer did?
Do you recall Officer Roberts ribbing you or picking on you about quote unquote relaxing in Mr. Bryan's truck?
Yeah, when she first walked up, yeah.
Something about getting in a car with her?
Objection to hearsay of Officer Roberts.
Okay. I believe you answered earlier that one of your primary responsibilities as first officer on the scene was to secure it for your safety and the safety of the other officers.
Correct.
Okay. Is it fair to say you wouldn't be relaxing in a truck with a random stranger if you felt your safety was endangered?
Upon getting on scene, one of my first things that I do is I do scan for immediate threats. And I did not see anything that was an immediate threat at that time.
Okay. Well, obviously you didn't view Mr. Bryan as a threat.
No, I didn't see him as a threat.
Okay. Is it fair to say you were trying to develop a rapport with Mr. Bryan at this point?
That's what we do, yes, sir, every
Okay.
time we interview.
Because you get more information.
Sure.
In your defense, you advised the other officers that Mr. Bryan was a main witness.
Mr. O'Brien advised me that he was a witness. And when I get on scene, whatever people are claiming to be, that's what they are.
Yes, sir.
For that time.
The defense made a statement and said, hey, weren't the officers at the scene teasing you for relaxing in the truck when you're in William Roddy Bryant's truck? Now, mind you, this is the defense attorney for William Roddy Bryant. Mind you, he's trying to get his client off. What does he say? Officer, you were so relaxed, right? Did anything about my client make you feel like he was a danger? What can you say? You're in the man's truck chilling, watching a movie. Oh, you were watching a movie, he was watching the incident that he recorded, right? You don't get in the truck with the suspect, he's like, well, I didn't think. He told you exactly what he did before you got in the truck. He's a suspect. He's a suspect. So the defense uses the fact that the officer sat in the truck with William Roddy Bryant. That's unprofessional. That's unprofessional. He used it to his advantage. My client could not have been a threat. If you guys are sitting in the truck relaxing, there's no way my client, right? Because as an officer, you know better and you can distinguish between a threat and a non-threat. And clearly, if you're relaxing in the truck, my client, there's no way he could have been a threat. That's what he said. Man, these guys think of all of it, man. They're thinking of all of these things, you guys. I'm telling you, for those who are saying innocent to proven guilty, man, it is a battle in the court, and it's a battle of the minds, okay? It's a battle. Both sides are fighting, innocent to proven. I don't even understand why they even coined that. Because when you sit when you sit in a trial, for those who have never been in a courtroom, okay, it's a nasty game. And two people are fighting, and that's the defense and the prosecution. They played him. Well, technically, he played himself. He gave them so much ammunition, right? So much ammunition. You know, with all that being said, the officer did fumble, right? This entire thing. But even despite that, right? The carelessness of his actions really didn't weigh too much on the actions and behaviors that had already been committed. And so because of that, it didn't really create such a big impact. But what I will say is, though, it may have helped one person's case more so than another, meaning William Roddy Bryant, his attorney really hammered on the fact that the officer really looked at William Roddy Bryant at the time as an innocent person, right? And he was able to capitalize on that. But the prosecution came back real quick and basically stating that even though in the moment William Roddy Bryant was not an active threat, it doesn't mean that he was not or did not play a threatening role to Ahmaud Arbery prior to the officer arriving. And the extent of his involvement were still somewhat unknown, and the officer could not have known that. And just because the officer was comfortable around William Roddy Bryant doesn't mean that William Roddy Bryant was not a threat to Ahmaud Arbery. So the prosecution was able to make that distinction, I think, and able to clear it up a little bit. But the defense was on it. They smelled blood and they were on it. All right. So anyways, you guys, that wraps up that cross-examination in reference to the case. As you know, the officer is no longer a police officer anymore. Thank God. And, you know, it just is what it is, you guys. It's just unfortunate we have people who can wiggle into this profession. It's been like that for a very long time. What can you do, right? What can we do? There's some solutions. I got some solutions, believe that. We'll talk about it on this channel. Anyways, you guys, let me know your thoughts on that cross-examination. I know it was kind of a lot of information, but really it was just pointing out the inconsistencies of that first responding officer and his contradictory statements that he made that I found were complete and utter BS. So anyways, let me know your thoughts, you guys. And with that, stay tuned for the next video. Good night. God bless.